This is the Eddie Mair Show on LBC. Text 84850.
On Call Keir this morning on LBC, the Labour leader announced he was planning to bring a vote to the House of Commons on Monday, have a debate and a vote on cladding. What's widely acknowledged to be a cladding crisis. You might call it a cladding scandal. We've already heard from our correspondent, Rachel Venables, who's made much of the running on the story over the months, and a moment ago from Dr. Natalie Curitan, who is stuck in a flat she can't sell, and it's having quite an effect on her life. What about you? 0345 6060 973. You can text 84850. Laura has called in. Laura, you're in Tooting, I know. Tell me about your situation. Welcome.
Hi, thanks for taking my call. So I bought my flat in 2016, first-time buyer, as I think the vast majority of the people in this building are. And after the Grenfell fire in 2017, we had, a few people started asking questions about the cladding. We had a survey done and we got told it's all fine. Your cladding is non-ACM cladding, which is the type of cladding that was on Grenfell Tower. So we all thought, great. And then in January 2020, the government changed the regulations about what would be considered safe or unsafe cladding. No one knew anything about it. It was kind of hardly consulted on. And then one of my neighbours tried to sell their flat in February last year and got told by the buyer's mortgage company via their solicitor that the flat was valued at zero because we don't have an EWS1 form. And none of us knew what that was. So obviously we started looking into it. And it turns out from surveys that we've paid and legal advice that we have non-ACM cladding, but under the new regulations, it's combustible. And we also have combustible insulation on the building, which could catch fire and, bring the fire up the building. So that was a surprise to all of us.
Well, you say surprise.
Yeah, a shock.
Yeah.
And so since then, we've been kind of fighting to understand what our rights are and what we can do. And I think, in conclusion, I think leaseholders pretty much it feels like leaseholders have no rights whatsoever. We had a fire engineer who is a former firefighter take a look at the cladding. And our building was built in 2011. So it was under the 2002 regulations, I believe. And his opinion is that it wasn't actually even compliant at the time that it was built and shouldn't have been signed off. And despite having that advice from him, we're still having to fight with the company, which I won't name, who signed the building off. And I think that's a company that signed off quite a lot of buildings. The burden of proof is on us to prove that it shouldn't have been signed off, as opposed to them proving that they should have signed it off. And that's the situation we're in.
I'm curious, Laura, I don't know how well you knew your neighbours before all of this. Are you all acting as one now? Is everybody in this together, or what's it like?
Yeah, I think at first people were shocked and upset and didn't really understand what it meant. I actually kind of volunteered to become a director on the board for the building to try to actually resolve it. And I'd say, there were quite a lot of... It was quite stressful at first, and some people really want to sell. They've had babies in the flats, a one-bedroom flat, and they need space. And so they're kind of desperate to sell and move on with their lives, and they can't. Other people feel unsafe. So at first, I think there was a difference of opinion. Everyone was confused. The government weren't telling anyone what to do. But I'd say now there's quite a kind of, everyone's pulling together and effectively getting to the point where we're just refusing to pay because we know that we shouldn't have to pay. And that if we do pay, it'll be a lot harder to get it back than if we actually just refuse, because we believe that the building should never have been signed off in the first place.
And in terms of paying, do you know what sort of figures might be involved?
We haven't had the final quote, but it's not as much as some people, which I'm fully aware of, but it's kind of mad to think, it's around sort of £12,000 to £15,000 per flat, which... When I read things about other people, I suddenly feel relieved that it's only that much, which is mad, because that's a lot of money.
Yes.
But the situation is that, it seems to be normalised now to see people getting bills of £50,000 per flat. So when you get 12,000, you think you've got lucky, and that's the situation the government's put us in.
How do you feel about your safety?
Me personally, I'm on the ground floor. So if I'm being honest, it doesn't personally make me feel unsafe because I know I can get out very easily. However, I think the people on the higher up in the building don't feel that way at all, understandably. We do have some other we have passed on some elements of the fire regulations, but the cladding is the issue. So we've been told that if the fire was inside the building, we'd probably be fine. Whereas if it went up the outside of the building, we probably wouldn't be. And so there's actually more of a worry about what's going on outside rather than inside the flats. And we have no control over that. So, when there were fireworks on New Year's Eve, for example, all I could think was, don't let it come near the building, because that will hit the cladding and then it will go up in flames.
Laura, thanks for letting us know about you. I hope this resolves to your satisfaction. You are not alone, cold comfort though that may be. Nigel is in Greenwich. Nigel, tell me about you. Welcome.
Hello there. Well, thanks for having me on this show. It's a slightly different angle to the problem, obviously related to it. I'm a leaseholder. I've owned my property for 7 years. Put a substantial amount of savings into it. The building is only 3 stories in height, and so it actually the guidance that was issued by the government was actually applicable to buildings of over 18 metres in height. So only being a 3-storey building, the legislation, the guidance that was issued shouldn't have applied to the building that I have, or the flat that I have.
Right.
However, all lenders are actually requiring that everybody, all flats, have to have an external wall survey completed and have a satisfactory EWS1 completed, irrespective of their height. And without that, then you're unable to sell or remortgage, and effectively our properties are worth zero. So all the savings that we've put in to our property and buying our properties and getting mortgages is kind of wiped out until this is resolved.
So do you know about what is on your building?
We have had a survey done, and there has to be remedial work to be undertaken. Now, because the building is under 10 years old, potentially it's still covered by the building's warranty. So we're kind of fortunate in that respect. But these sort of processes and claims, should it go that far, take a long time to process. And I say at the moment I'm in a fixed term mortgage. I know that that's going to come to an end fairly soon, and I'm going to end up going on to a very expensive variable rate mortgage because I can't remortgage, if that makes sense, but I can't go to another lender. And it just seems that the whole policy that has been introduced by the government has been poorly implemented. I can see that it's very important to protect those properties that where there is a significant danger and where there's significant risk. But I think the policy that's been implemented has had an unintended consequence in the way that lenders are interpreting the guidance issued by the government is unfairly penalising those it was never intended to affect.
And what's the likelihood of getting hold of this EWS1, which I know people struggle to get?
Well, the survey, we've actually had a survey done, but I understand that there are very few qualified people that are able to issue the survey report.
Exactly, yeah.
And there's a number of people out there who are not qualified and are charging a lot of money to have something done that's actually not, it's actually not delivering what not getting a qualified report. So it's a bit uncharted territory, really. We've seen there's lots of information that's there on the internet, and you can pick up lots of you can hear lots of stories, and much worse stories than ours, of people in harrowing situations. But there doesn't seem to be much in the way of help and much in the way of guidance. Although it's interesting to hear your article earlier from Sir Keir Starmer. And bringing a motion or calling for a vote and a motion next week, which will be good. And I've also written to my local MP as well and highlighted the case. But I think we're just one small part of a bigger problem.
Unquestionably. Nigel, thank you. And we'll play that clip again of Sir Keir Starmer, who was on LBC this morning talking to Nick on Call Keir, which is what's led us to have this conversation tonight. 0345 6060 973, whether your cladding problem is something you've been dealing with for some years, as some of our listeners have been telling us, or whether it's dawned on you quite recently. What effect is it having on your life? As Natalie told us a little earlier, Dr. Curitin, this stops people getting on with their lives, besides all the other problems. And Laura telling us about how people in her building have outgrown their living accommodation. They've had a child. They can no longer live in a one-bedroom flat, and they are stuck.